It's the busiest sports weekend in North Dakota. Starts today. We're live at the Class B softball tournament at NDSU to preview that. Plus, the Wolves season comes to a crashing ending in. A busy Hot Mic live at location starts right now.
Hot Mic with Dom Izzo.
Really? Really, Dom?
I like what Dom's doing.
Okay.
Dom Izzo.
Jeez, come on, Dom. What do you think I am, a magician?
Yeah, I'm fired up, Dom. What else could I say?
Absolutely. It was great to get on the field, and then Dom came up to me, and I'm trying to walk away from me. I just wanted to enjoy myself out there.
Hot Mic.
Great job.
There's got to be some kind of intelligent question about something.
Coach Dom Izzo, WDAY in Fargo, North Dakota.
Can you give me a layup or something?
Hot Mic. Presented by Northwestern Mutual.
That program is second to none.
On the networks of WDAY.
You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Here's Dom Izzo. Dom Izzo.
Good Thursday morning. We are live on location. It is the final weekend of the North Dakota high school sports calendar season. 6 state tournaments set to begin today. We're all across the eastern part of the state in both Grand Forks and Fargo and West Fargo today. It's set to be actually the weather cooperated for us for the first time in a long time for what's going to be a great day of sports. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Hot Mic here. We are at Therrelton Complex on the north side of Fargo on the campus of North Dakota State. Behind me, later today, the Class B state softball tournament will get going. The first game comes up in just about 2 hours. We're leading you right up to first pitch coming up on WDAY2 later today. Full show out here to get you ready for both softball and baseball, because right across the way at Newman Outdoor Field, the Class B baseball tournament will get going at about 11:30 this morning, and we'll get you updated on that, which will be a pretty good day. It is a solemn day. It is not a thrilling day for those that follow the Minnesota Timberwolves. For the second year in a row, the Wolves have crashed out of the NBA Western Conference Finals, last year losing to the Dallas Mavericks in 5 games. This year, it's Oklahoma City taking care of the Wolves in 5. And we'll get to the highlights here in just a second. But the way the game played out last night is going to overshadow what was a great playoff run. 6 weeks of tremendous basketball, and how the Wolves took care of the Lakers, how they took care of the Warriors. And I know Steph Curry didn't play for Golden State in a majority of that series. But the way that they lost Game 4 and the way that they lost last night with a no-effort start to the game is going to leave a pall on the season. There's no other way to look at it. And granted, we talked about it I don't know how many times in this show on where they were at in terms of how they were playing, how poorly they were playing from late October, November, December. They didn't really catch fire until after the All-Star break. And that, again, if you were to ask me, okay, in February or late January, is this team's going to make the Western Conference Finals? Sign me up, absolutely. But again, it's just the way that the season ended that just leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. Let's show you what happened last night in Oklahoma City between the Wolves and Thunder. Game 5, which OKC was raring to go for what was going to be a raucous environment. OKC knowing they could clinch. The Wolves are going to need their best performance, and they did not get it last night. Chet Holmgren was fantastic to start, driving to the basket, getting dunks early and often. The Wolves got a a Julius Randle 3 to start. After that, they couldn't make a shot, and they kept turning the ball over, something that plagued them this entire series. Alex Caruso with the feed to the MVP to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for the dunk. You see that score right, folks. It was 26-9 Oklahoma City after the first quarter. And frankly, the game was pretty much over after the first quarter because it did not get any better from there. Second quarter, they kept turning it over. Julius Randle, we're going to have a conversation about him on this program and what the Wolves are going to do there. Feed inside to Holmgren for the dunk. The lead up to 20. Naz Reid. What happened to Naz this entire playoffs? He turns it over. Jalen Williams with a step through, who was great last night. The lead balloons to 22 points on the Timberwolves. You see that score right. They had 27 points with 4 minutes to go in the first half. SGA knocks down the jumper, then the drive and finish. It was 65-32 at halftime. again, it was over after the first quarter. It was certainly over at halftime. Again, more turnovers in the third. That one stripped, dunked home by SGA. The crowd just kept getting more crazy as it went along. Lou Dort knocks down a three, and the route was on after that. Actually, Oklahoma City got up by 30 at one point of this game. There, another three knocked down. The lead gets up to 29 points. Again, MVP played like it. We talked about it with Tyrese Halliburton on Wednesday's show, how he played in the Game 4 win for Indiana. SGA did the same thing last night, delivering a huge performance. And the Thunder cruise over the Wolves, 124-94, the final score. Oklahoma City is heading to the NBA Finals for the first time since 2012. The Timberwolves out in the Western Conference Finals for the second year in a row. Randall's stat line will look impressive, but he did nothing last night. Anthony Edwards held to 19 points. So for the final two games of the series, Ant combines for 35 points. SGA was fantastic, 34. Holmgren goes for 22. Jalen Williams, 19, to send the Thunder to the NBA Finals for the first time in 13 years. Afterwards, no real answers for the Wolves on what happened in this series.
It's exciting. I don't know why people would think it would hurt. I mean, it's exciting for me. I'm 23. I get to do it a whole bunch of times. I'm hurt more so for myself, for Mike. I came up short for Mike. Like I said, we tried last year. We couldn't get it. We tried again this year. We're going to try again next year. But hurting is a terrible word to use. I'm good.
It hurts. It hurts more than, I don't think anybody can really feel what I feel. I can't ask them to feel that because they haven't been around as long and seen how few opportunities you get at this this chance. So for me, it's gonna take a while just to kind of dissect what we just did and weren't able to accomplish. But at the same time, proud of my team, proud of these guys. Man, they really fought. Not just for me, but just for the whole team. They did a great job of bonding together in the right time, just to give ourselves this chance. So I appreciate them more than anything, and we're gonna try this thing again next year.
They came ready to play. We didn't. When you lose a game like this, it's not really too much to break down. They just did what they were supposed to do and won the game.
Why don't you think you guys came ready to play?
I don't know. They dominated the game from the tip. And can't do nothing but tip my hat to those guys. They came ready, man. So good job by them.
Reaction. I think people are going to make some reactions from what Anthony Edwards had to say afterwards in the game last night. And it wasn't pretty. Ant combined for 35 points, 16 points in game number 4, 19 points last night. Jaden McDaniels just kept jacking up threes in the first quarter and kept missing. And granted, the shots were open. I understand that, but at some point you maybe have to pull the plug and say, okay, this isn't working tonight. And as I mentioned heading into the highlights, it just leaves a bitter taste in one's mouth on how the season played out, and to have the ending the way it was a disappointing conclusion. So now there's some decisions to make. Obviously, Julius Randle has a player option for a sizable amount of money, I believe over $30 million. Naz Reid has an option. He said after the game he wants to come back. The Wolves are going to have to make a decision if they want to bring him back. Mike Conley is under contract for one more year. What happens there? And you could hear Anthony Edwards was certainly upset with not being able to deliver for the veteran Conley, who's been a great presence on this team. 0 points last night on 3 shots. Not the way, obviously, he wanted his season to end. They have to make a decision on Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I don't believe he's part of this team in 25-26. Terrence Shannon Jr., the way he played in the Western Conference Finals once he got in Game 3, I think commands that they got to find a way to get him to play. Jalen Clark. Remember, for a time when Randall was out, Clark was phenomenal. Rob Dillingham, their first-round pick. They've got to make some decisions there. So they have a first-round pick. Obviously, they have the Pistons pick late in the first round of the upcoming draft, but there are some decisions that Tim Connolly's going to have to make now with the ownership piece finally settled and that A-Rod and Mark Laurie are owning this team and moving forward, some decisions to make. So the Thunder will have a full week off. The NBA Finals do not begin until a week from today on WDAY. Game 1 comes up at 7:30 a week from tonight. Who will they play? The Pacers or the Knicks play Game 5 at Madison Square Garden tonight. If Indiana wins, they go to the finals. If the Knicks win, we get a Game 6 on Saturday in Indianapolis in a series that's been fantastic. All 4 games have been so close to start, but we could have Indiana OKC may not be what everybody in the executives want. Who cares what they want? That could be a tremendous basketball. I don't know how you beat the question I have out of this is, how do the Nuggets beat the Thunder 3 times over? We still don't have they have the best player in the world in Jokic, and that's clearly why they were able to have the kind of success that they had. So we'll see. But that's the Wolves wrap-up. Unfortunately, it is over after last night. Also last night, we now know one team into the Stanley Cup final, and it's the team that we've seen there the last couple of years. The Florida Panthers are heading back after they dispatched the Carolina Hurricanes last night in Game 5 in a series that Florida actually led 3-0. The Panthers lost Game 4 at home to force a Game 5 back in Raleigh, and we're down 2-0, and then, boy, this game changed in a heartbeat. This goal put Florida up by a 3-2 score. Carolina would answer back and tie the game up at 3 in the third period on a fabulous goal by Seth Jarvis to make it a 3-all score, but Carter Verhaeghe has been sensational. He gets the go-ahead goal to make it a 4-3 Florida lead. Sam Bennett would add an empty netter to give the Panthers a 5-3 advantage, and Florida hangs on and knocks off Carolina. Of course, the Hurricanes snapped that long losing streak that they had in the Eastern Conference Finals with a win in Game 4, but Florida does it again. The Panthers are going to the final for the 3rd year in a row. They win it 5-3 over the Hurricanes. So Florida now will await the winner of Dallas and Edmonton. That series could potentially end tonight. The Oilers lead that 3-1. Dallas is back home. If the Stars win, we know the Stanley Cup final will not start until June the 7th. If Edmonton wins tonight, then Game 1 of the final will be on June the 4th, next Wednesday. Of course, they want to stay away from conflicting with basketball. That's the last report last night. So we could have a Stanley Cup final rematch, or it's going to be the Oilers and the Panthers. Crazy stat out of this is that Florida has been represented in the Stanley Cup final every year since before COVID. 2019 was the last time we didn't have a Florida team playing in the Stanley Cup. That was the Blues playing Boston that year. Ever since Tampa Bay, of course, won it in 20 and 21. The Lightning lost to the Avalanche in 22. Then the Panthers have been there 3 years running. They lost to Vegas 2 years ago. They beat the Oilers last year, and they're going back. So what a tremendous franchise they've built, led by Matthew Tkachuk. They've had some great goaltending with Bobrovsky and net. Now they got a chance to go back-to-back and defend their Stanley Cup, and that'll begin next week. Congratulations. Just a dominant run there. Okay, now to set the scene of where we're at here today. In front of me, Delax Burlington, the Lakers are going through batting practice. They've got the first game of 4 that are coming up here at the Therrelton Complex, as we're back up here. NDSU has hosted this. It'll be the 4th time that this complex has hosted the Class B softball tournament. Our first game will feature Delax Burlington and Mayport CG. That'll be followed by Hillsboro Central Valley against Velva Drake Animus at about 1:30 for Game 2. We're back at 4 o'clock with Carrington against the number 1 seed Central Cass. And then we wrap things up at about 6:30 tonight with Beulah and Bottineau in the final quarterfinal. All of these games you'll see live today here on WDAY 2. So if you're watching on Extra, we're going to have softball on WDAY 2. If you're watching Extra, we've got Class B baseball coming up from right across the way over at Newman Outdoor Field, and we'll give you the lowdown on that coming up later on this morning. But it is a great day. The weather is going to be perfect. Sun is peeking through the clouds here. Temperature is fantastic. We have dealt with all sorts of weather conditions for all the tournaments over the past few years, so it's nice that we're going to have a great day for softball. And just going through the teams that have made it here, DLB has made it 9 times to state before. They were runners-up back in 2018. They're looking to get over the hump. Central Cass is the class of this. Squirrels have won 6 state titles since Class B softball became sanctioned back in 2012. So there are the ones to keep an eye on. Beulah won this thing a couple years ago. We're going to preview that with the Miners coming up later on in the show. They are the 4 seed in this event. I mentioned DLB is the 2. Velva is the 3. They've had some great success in making it here, but this sport continues to grow, continues to get more teams into it. We've got 3 teams that have never been here before that have made it. Carrington's here for the first time. Bottineau is here for the first time. That's a big deal there. We're going to see Mayport-CG coming up later at our first game. Big deal for them to get back here to state. So the support for this keeps growing. The amount of players keep coming out. It's a great deal, and it's fun to see. We got a packed show coming up for you here on this Thursday morning. Today's a big day for everybody involved in high school athletics in the state of North Dakota. One of our favorite guests, Jason Simpfenderfer, athletic director at Beulah High School, will join me coming up at 9:30. Discuss his softball team being back at state and everything else. He's served on the High School Activities Association over the last little bit. We haven't talked with Jason, get an update on how things are going there coming up at 9:35. At 10 o'clock, Logan Midthun will join us. West Fargo activities director oversees everything going on in the district, whether it be the Packers, the Mustangs, the Hawks. It's obviously been a banner year for Horace. He was formerly AD at Horace. We'll talk with him about what everything has gone on in West Fargo this year. That's coming up at 10 o'clock. At 10:35, Hillsboro Central Valley head softball coach Cory Erickson will join us. He's been the guy leading the Burros ever since they became a state-sanctioned sport way back in 2012. How this sport has grown, where it's going, what potential for his team this weekend. They've got Game 2, as I mentioned, coming up with Velva at about 1 o'clock. So a packed show on tap for us here. We always love doing the show live on location. We love it even more when the weather works out for us, and we got a great day. And sunscreen was applied before we went on, so we're all set there. We'll take our first break. We come back. For you college football nerds, today is a big day. Not only are we 93 days out from the start of the season, we're going to start figuring out some TV games. That includes the Bison on national television. Hot mic off and rolling live here at Therrelton Complex on the north side of Fargo. Back after this on WDAY Extra, KSFL, KMBN, and Inforum.com. We're back right after this, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. Hot Mic live on location here up at NDSU as we're getting ready for the Class B softball tournament. First pitch coming up here in about an hour and 38 minutes or so with the first game between DeLax Burlington and Mayport-CG to get things started here on this Thursday morning. Now, as mentioned, we went to break. It's a big day for the college football TV nerds, myself included on that, because we're going to find out at about noon today the selections for the first 3 weeks of the season, weeks 0, 1, 2, and 3. That's where the networks have held their draft to determine who's going to be on and what channel. We already know the opponents. We know the locations. We don't know the network, and we don't know the time. Now, why that be important to this program? A, for a couple reasons. North Dakota, for its opener with Kansas State, likely is going to be a Fox Sports 1 or an ESPN 2 game. Also, University of South Dakota taking on Iowa State potentially could be one of those games. So something to keep an eye on there. Also into the mix, we'll get some specialty games. That includes North Dakota State and its matchup with the University of South Dakota, which is coming up in late September. And I can confirm, sources have told me that game is certainly under consideration to be picked by ESPN. Or ESPN2. We'll find out at noon today on that, but that's a game, obviously, over the last couple of years has been dynamite. South Dakota has won in the regular season each of the last 2 years on that. Of course, the thriller last year in Vermillion, a 29-28 USD win, scoring on the final 14 seconds to win that football game. And that leads to the consternation, excitement of what potentially we could have for that matchup. So that's not the only game. I've also been told the Dakota Marker game is under consideration for the Bison game at South Dakota State at the end of October the 25th. Of course, last year, remember, the Dakota Marker game was picked, the game in Fargo. It was televised on ESPN2. Now, here's the rub on this. We don't know, and we won't know, the channel or the game time. I'm led to believe that if it is the USD game that's picked, it's likely going to be at night, which is homecoming, which could add to some consternation for some fans. Also, I would imagine if the Jackrabbit Bison game is picked, that would be a primetime game. Just the availability of TV windows, and we're getting to the weeds on this, and I know some people just roll their eyes, like, just tell me when the game is and what channel it's going to be on. And I understand that, but this is the selection process on it because they're going to wait to see, okay, what SEC game is good, what Big 12 game is going to be good. Remember, the Big 10 is out of this because ESPN doesn't have a contract with the Big 10 anymore. So you got to look at what SEC games are out there and what Big 12 games are out there. That's why I think for the Week 1 games, for Kansas State, UND, Iowa State, South Dakota, those are certainly primed to be picked by one of those networks, especially USD. USD is going to be, we saw on the Hero Sports preseason poll, the Coyotes come in at number 4. I thought that was actually kind of surprising. The Bison were 1, Montana State was 2, South Dakota State was 3, and South Dakota was 4. Granted, we know less about the Jacks roster than we do the Coyotes roster, frankly, with the amount of turnover they had. But, again, I've said it all season. I don't think South Dakota State is going to fall off the map. But that's just something to keep your eyes on here. We expect the avalanche of releases to start about noon, and the Bison ESPN release with the Missouri Valley Football Conference will be mixed in there. Know this is the second year of the deal, and that means the games will not be on WDAY, which clearly we're not thrilled about, but this is the deal that the league made that started last year. They took 2 games. They can take a minimum of 9 over the breadth of the contract. It's a 6-year deal. Started last year, goes through 2029. Now, they can take more than that, and I anticipate every year the Bison Jacks game is going to be, I think, off the table. And if it's 1 versus 3, 1 versus 4, NDSU South Dakota, and they love doing games at the Dome. We know that. Heck, last year, you remember, look at the Mercer game and the Jacks game were both on ABC last year when they had the opportunity to pick that. They took North Dakota State. So just something to be aware of for you college football nerds out there over the next couple of hours. Also yesterday, out of the SEC spring meetings, we heard that Commissioner Greg Sankey, and I'm just passing the news along, that they are in favor of the 5+11 plan, which means 5 automatic qualifiers and then 11 at-large bids. That's different than the earlier plan, which was the 4-4-2-2-1-1-1 plan. That has some traction potentially going forward. I think the Big Ten is looking to be on board. Certainly the Big 12 is on board with that, but they still got to figure out how many games they're going to play. It is the never-ending drama that goes on with this sport that they can never really figure out on how many games they want to play, who they want to play, when they want to play. It's just the never-ending deal on that. So just wanted to update things there. Here, as I mentioned, we're getting set. Batting practice going on for Delax Burlington. Stace tells me, what time did they get here? 8:15? They were here 8:15 this morning. They were ready to rock and roll for this first game. Mayport CG just got here a little while ago. They'll be getting their reps in for this first game. And then later today, the afternoon session, Hillsboro Central Valley against Velva. And then later today, Carrington Central Cass and Beulah and Bottineau. For those that haven't spectated, been to this tournament, watched it before, and it's been televised sparingly over the last few years. Crowds have normally been really good. Really, really good for Class B softball. We anticipate that'll be the case again, especially with the weather the way it's going to be. I'll be intrigued to see what things look like up in Grand Forks. For the first time, Class A softball is heading up there at the brand-new complex at UND. Class A baseball returning to Kraft Field for the first time in a long, I have to say, at least a decade. It's probably since UND baseball folded its program, and that was 2016, 2015. Probably even been longer than that Kraft Field has hosted the state baseball tournament. So they got that going on. And obviously out at West Fargo, Cheyenne, that's where soccer is going on. That begins later this morning as well, or this afternoon. Benell needs to know because he's getting out there at noon later today. And then tennis gets going up in Grand Forks with the team competition. So this is as packed as it gets, and it stretches everybody as possible. For us, this is our first foray into doing this. You saw last week with track, and it came off great for our television coverage of that. This is a whole new endeavor that we got going here over the next 3 days. So it's gone a lot of planning. We got people everywhere. We got a whole other crew that's over at Newman Outdoor Field on top of the crew that's going to be here at the Theraldson Complex over the next couple days. So it's going to be fantastic. Looking forward and can't wait to be out here for the next couple of days. We're due for a break. We come back. We get caught up on everything that's going on out in Beulah, North Dakota. Athletic Director Jason Simpfenderfer will join us. Updated, his Miners are here. They're playing later today here at this Class B softball tournament. We're live on location. Hot Mic continues after this on WDAY Extra, KSFL TV, KNBN, and Inforum.com. We're back right after this. Hot Mic live on location here at Theraldson Park, getting set for the 2025 Class B State Softball Tournament. Begins in about 90 minutes with Delax Burlington and Mayport Siege. Great to see my next guest, who we get to visit about every couple of years. It's like the Olympics. We get to see Jason Simpfenderfer, Athletic Director at Beulah. His Miners will be playing later today. Of course, they won the state championship in 2023. It's great to see you.
Good to see you too, Dom.
We're in the closing stretch here. You were out at track last week. That we televised that. Looked like it. First off, the weather cooperated for the first time in forever.
Gorgeous weather. After the week and a half of rain we had out there.
And now ready for the craziest weekend here, where we got 80s, teams are split everywhere. Thankfully now, I think over the last couple of years where they've paired softball and baseball in the same town, it alleviated that. Because remember, 10 years ago, that was a nightmare for administrators and parents.
Yeah, this is pretty cool to be able to get all the B schools together, and then the A's are in their own place, and just the ability to see all your kids when you've got. I mean, we aren't fortunate this year to have both teams playing, but have been. Thompson is usually one of those teams, and so that's good for their fans and their community.
Tell us about this Beulah softball program. We talked a couple years ago about how much better you guys were getting. Obviously, get over the hump and win the thing a couple years ago out in Minot. How much has that driven more participation for girls to come out and play?
Well, I think the numbers have kind of stayed the same, but I think the expectation of we don't just not showing up to throw the ball around. I mean, there's expectations. You're going to work and you're going to do some things, and we're fortunate we have some really, really good players. Yeah. And then we have some that are coming. We've got some good young kids. I think we start a 7th grader, and her sister's a freshman. And so we've got some good young players and some ones that really stepped into roles this year that I don't think we were expecting. We had a couple girls step away from softball and go to track, and those other girls have stepped in and performed.
You also have a pitcher that people have not watched on this side of the state, that she's been dominating since she was in the 7th grade. Yep. Give us the lowdown on Addie and what kind of player and what she's meant to your school.
Addie is Addie's kind of a bulldog. She'll get in there and she throws pretty hard, and she's pretty consistent around the plate. Very, very competitive. And so she brings it, and that's really good. And then she's a volleyball player and a basketball player, and again, very competitive and goes all out when she plays those sports. And I think that has kind of led to some of the other girls increasing that competitive nature.
I'm intrigued to see how softball has grown on the western side of the state, where I remember when Class B got sanctioned in 2012. I'm like, okay. And it exploded. Bishop Ryan was really good right away, and then obviously you guys have come on. DLB's been really good. Velva's come on. How is it? Well, you've seen it out there firsthand, where the explosion in participation in the sport, much like girls wrestling, has blown up. But what you've seen firsthand on the western side of the state?
The crazy thing is teams picked up quite a bit there. There have been some growing pains with some of the programs. They get a few girls here or there that, in their numbers kind of fluctuate, but. Yeah, we're now 2 separate regions out there, and we're we were an 11-team region in the Southwest, and which is crazy. We stretch from Velva and Ned Rose and South Prairie, and again, those programs have all gotten better. I think just the competitiveness and the fact that we've got a lot of girls that play travel ball in the summertime and are it's crazy is the fact that you'll get the travel ball teams, and it might be 4 players from Beulah and 3 from Velva and a couple from Wilton, and there's some really, really talented kids on a lot of those teams. Yeah. And I think it just goes to show a testament to the work they put in and how much they play in the summertime. Wilton's got a great one in the Zimmerman girls. So.
Yep. I know AD's job is never done. What's right now pressing either with the high school association or your own school about we need to get our arms wrapped around this right now?
Right now, the big thing that we've been talking about is 3-class basketball and performance points, and how do we go
we just
about
had that come up there just a couple months ago.
Yep, and we just met as the NDI AAA met in athletic review, and we've got some things going, and we'll see when the board meets, the activity association board meets in June, how we're going to handle some of those things. And I think that's the big thing is we knew it wasn't a perfect plan when it came, and there's going to be some aches and pains with it, and there was a lot of grumbling about teams moving up or not moving up and those sorts of things. I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever get it perfect, but we can try to get it as best as we can. And that's kind of the big thing. And then I think for a lot of other schools now, I think one of the pressing issues, and especially in the western half of the state, is officials. Shortage of officials for football and basketball and baseball, softball, those sorts of things. It's trying to get people involved and get them to be there. Everybody's great from about 130 feet, but nobody wants to get
replay.
Yeah, nobody wants to get right behind the plate or gets down on the floor. So I think those are some big things we have to look at.
Let me go back to the point system and that, because we talked about it on the show right after the Class A season ended. Obviously, we looked, Kindred was right in there to potentially move up. They ended up staying in their class with Devil's Lake as well. The feedback I got was, okay, it's good for now, but if they're really good again, and granted, players leave, what do we do here? What, as an association, how do you handle that?
Yeah, one of the things that came out of our NDI AAA meeting yesterday, our board, we met and we talked about the difference between having it's like a great class that goes through and can really push it, and that was the one point was the Walker Broughton, and again, and not that he was the only player on that team, but he was a special person, and the fact that one person or two people could change in a 4-year period, could change where your school classification is, might be difficult, because when they're gone now you've got some kids that didn't earn the target on their back or to be where they're at. So I think we got to figure that out. Is one group of kids enough to change your whole school classification and those sorts of things? And it's I don't know. That's really hard to do.
Well, you ran into it. I was with football with one of your blood rivals, St. Mary's, experienced that moving up, and obviously did not, and their success points dictated that they had to move up, and the success was not there at the top division, and they had to come back. And I'm interested how, because football is such a lightning rod topic on that, that that's always the comeback. Okay, well, they moved up and they got their brains beat in. That's not the class they deserve to be in.
Yeah, and like I look at, I don't know, Harvey Wells County, I think, as a boys basketball program got moved up, and I don't think that they were ultra successful in B, and so now to move up to that middle level just because of the population thing, and again, I don't know, it's hard to figure that out, and I know that St. Mary's football was probably the reason there's the success points. They got their program fixed, and
they were humming.
They were good.
Every year, man.
We had some good battles with them, and we're fortunate to have a special group of kids to beat them in 2015.
Win,
but that again, it's a hard thing. You look at, maybe if your numbers say you should be up, but you opt down, you don't get to be in the playoffs. But then how does that kill a program if you can't play? It's just it's hard because you want to do what's best for kids, and you want to do what's best for all kids, and you can't sometimes those two don't always jive. You can't do what's best for all kids if you're doing what's best for this, but you don't want to hurt them either, and that's a really tenuous situation.
I'm interested because you were front and center on the 3-class proposal and it going through. What is the feedback for the 2 years you've gotten on how it's gone so far?
I think there's a lot of people that like it. I think Devils Lake and Kindred, because they've got good, Devils Lake had a great group of athletes come through. Kindred's got a monster program. Coach Wales done a great job there. So do you, how does, I don't know, like I think the feedback's been good as far as competitive. I think of course, Kindred and Devils Lake this year were a little bit better than everybody else. But I think through the rest of it, I think teams have all been pretty close. Our region was tight out there, and the other ones, I think it's been good for basketball. Yeah. I do think it's been good. I just, again, some of the tweaks we have to do, but
I'm intrigued next year to see with the Class A tournament the girls tournament is going to be in Jamestown, where they've had the B out there the last couple, and they've totally welcomed it. But that's a different size of towns. Yours is involved in that as well. That I'm interested if Jamestown is prepared for a Kindred or a Devils Lake, a Beulah to come there to what the size and scope is going to be there.
Yeah, I think, and maybe it's a little bit different, but I think of softball and baseball being there and just hotel space and those sorts of things. So I think if you have the bigger A schools and they travel, it could be tight. It could be tight. That the Jamestown Civic could be a tight venue.
Correct.
And so,
which you want. You want it to be packed. You want it to be a tough ticket, but you want the ability for everybody to be able to get in.
Exactly. And I hope that's the problem is you guys are doing such a dang good job broadcasting. I think there are people that stay home.
I appreciate that. Yes.
So Stacy behind the camera here, he's doing too good of a job getting things all set up.
Make his head swell on that. Do you have a couple more minutes to chat?
I do.
All right, we're going to take a break. We come back. A couple of more minutes here as we wrap our first hour. Jason Simpfenderfer joining us from Beulah. So on the first day of the Class B softball tournament, Mayport-CG and Delax-Burlington coming up just over an hour. Back on Hot Mic, live on location right after this. Hot Mic live on location. We roll on this Thursday morning, getting closer to the first pitch for the 2025 Class B State Softball Tournament. Delax-Burlington, Mayport-CG going to lead it off. Later today, Beulah and Bottineau. We're back with Beulah AD Jason Simpfenderfer. You got a first-timer, and Bottineau's never been here before, so that's an added challenge as well.
Yeah, I don't think we've played them that I can recall. So, yeah, it'll be different, and I'd hate to ruin their party, but all dang it.
You want to, right?
I do. Sorry about that, Bottineau, but we want to get a W tonight.
So I had a couple weeks ago, I had your old basketball coach on, Jeremy Brand, who's now, after big time in college basketball, he's going to be head coach at Minot. You guys, that stretch where, obviously, with him coaching, with Trey playing, that was a heck of a stretch for Beulah basketball. Awesome to see him back in the high school game.
I am so excited for him. When he left, and again, I don't think Coach Brandt is all about the milestone stuff and those sorts of things, the personal records. He left at 497 career victories. And I was like, man, I hope he gets 500. Yeah. And I hope he gets 500 in his first 3 games at Minot. And I know it's a little bit different animal in that level, but he is a great competitor, and he is such a good coach. And even probably more than that, he's a better human. Yep. And we were really fortunate to have him and Trey and the things he did to help set us up for the success we're having now with Coach Shirato, who got to work with him for a few years. And I think they still talk pretty much on a daily basis about things. So Coach Brandt is still part of Beulah basketball for sure.
I have to ask, I normally bug you about this every couple of years when I see you, that we're doing this weekend of televising all the tournaments at once. Is there any appetite to space things out, to not have all 6 on the same weekend?
I think it would be good if we could do that. Yeah. I just think that I don't know logistically with schools and all those things how much they really would want to do that. I mean, I think it would be good.
Yeah.
But I think also when you have kids who've graduated and now you're going maybe
so
4 or 5 weeks.
Right, when was your last day of school?
We were done this past Thursday,
Okay.
but there were schools that were done the Thursday before.
Yes.
So there have been some that have been
while.
out for 2 weeks,
Yep.
and we've been out for a week now, and we graduated on Sunday. So, but I just think, man, once you take the reins off of some of those horses, they might like to run and a little bit harder to rein back in.
And Zier and I have been back and forth on this about how early. I think you and I have talked about this, how early football has started, which I think is absurd. That I think one year was August 3rd. It wasn't that long ago. You guys were having football. Can we push that back and push everything back? I'm spending other people's money, which is my favorite thing to do on this show. But that could alleviate this, where we have 6 on the same weekend.
Yeah, I think they have. I guess I haven't really visited a whole lot about that, but I just think those natural calendar dates we want to be done at this time, and I think they worry about outside playoffs and. We played a state championship game one year, and it was 65 degrees outside. We played Dickinson Trinity in 2005. We could have played in Richardson. It was that nice out, and there's other times there's 3 feet of snow.
Yes.
So I think those are some of the concerns.
I would look at it too on the football side of things. Obviously, if you got to work with the Fargo Dome and NDSU, and obviously you're with the Bison schedule. You're hopeful. You got to be maybe if it's later, later in November, and they're available to play, that you can get in there and do that. To me, it takes away from some of the sports to get their shine, to get their moment in the spotlight, like with softball or tennis or soccer, because they're sharing it with 3 other sports.
Yeah, I think so too. It would be cool if everyone had their own weekend, or
football doesn't have to share for the
Right.
They would say, okay, well, swimming is the same weekend, Dom. Okay, but those are 2 vastly different audiences that aren't going to coexist.
Yeah. Like I said, I think just the calendar not wanting to run too far in, and then they talk about baseball and how that would be impacted with Legion baseball.
Yep, that's always a huge deal
and
too.
in some places, Legion baseball is huge, in other places it's died out. And I think when you start monkeying with things, you might open a can of worms that unravels and becomes worse than what you had before. But I do think that it would be great if we could get some of those other activities their own special, I guess, treatment.
I talk about NIL almost on a daily basis on the college rank. How much of is it trickling in, have you heard, on the high school ranks right now?
Not at all. I wish there would have been back in the day. I would have loved to get the Washburn Tasty Freeze as my NIL sponsor, but I think probably. We had some kids, I think, in the past. I think Jesse White probably would have gotten something. And, I look at Lily Bell, and, man, the offers she's had, I think there would be an opportunity for some of those. Or
LSU just offered her.
Yeah.
So,
South, I think of South Prairie right there. I saw the girl from there. Riley Rutledge.
Yep.
Her name was right on the tip of my tongue.
Just committed to NDSU.
Just committed to NDSU.
On our show.
So I would think, I think there's an opportunity for some of that. I would imagine it's going to be big school kids would really get it, and you're going to have to be a really special smaller school kid for that. But
I would think maybe on the flip side of that, for a Class B athlete that is amazing, like a Walker Broughton, that somebody in a car dealership in West Hope or Newburgh would say, hey, we want to be with. We'll attach ourselves to that kid. Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. I wouldn't mind driving a new truck if I was a high school kid.
But I understand, and I've heard plenty of the perils of a 16 or a 17-year-old kid. Are they ready for that kind of responsibility? And that's a legitimate concern, Jason.
Well, I agree, and I think I would like to think that there's more common sense in maybe North Dakota than in other places, or the upper Midwest anyway, and the fact that we would have parents would have a pretty hands-on approach if this were the case, and kids wouldn't get taken advantage of. You think about just even, I think about all the several years ago, all those guys that would get drafted in basketball or football, and they sign those monster deals. And within 4 years or 5 years, they don't have any money left because they've squandered it with all their family taking advantage.
That's a legit concern in college athletics right now.
And right now, the money being bandied about there is unbelievable.
Right
and just to think we had guys that were excited to get a work study or a $500 scholarship.
Exactly right.
At Mayville State back in the day. Pizza shop would have been a great NIL deal there too.
What so exact plans for you today? Are you just observing? What do you have a chance to do today?
I'm just here as a fan today, and I'm going to watch our girls. We have a nephew that plays for Lemoore. Okay. I'm going to try to sneak over and watch him play. We play at the same time, so that's
going back what I just talked about.
Yep, yeah. So we're gonna do that, and I'm just here as a fan. I didn't put my name down to hand out awards, and we've got enough people to do that. So I get to be a fan and watch and cheer on teams, and it's nice. I get to see Coach Pearson and talk to Peggy and some of the other ones that I know. So it's always cool to see the people and the camaraderie of all that.
It's only going to get bigger. I really believe that. I had a firsthand view. I was calling girls wrestling. That was fantastic at the Dome. This sport I've seen grown, and especially in Class B since it became sanctioned over a decade and a half ago. It just keeps getting bigger and better, and it's going to – there's no downward trajectory in my mind.
Nope, I don't either. We've got girls that can play. Obviously, Abby Duxer playing at the highest level, and I think we've got some players in our state that are going to continue to raise the bar, whether it be in softball or basketball or girls wrestling or wherever. I think that the opportunity for those girls is tremendous, and I hope that we continue to grow all of our sports and our participation increases and we get to showcase our athletes, which is awesome because of what you guys do to share that with everybody in the state.
It's great to see you, bud. Thanks so much for making time.
Absolutely.
All right, enjoy your summer. We'll talk again when football gets closer. All right.
Will do.
Jason Simpfenderfer joining us from Beulah, athletic director there. The Miners coming up later today in our final game on this Thursday. We'll break. We come back. We'll start hour 2 as we're closing in on the start of the Class B softball tournament here in Fargo. Back on a Thursday morning edition of Hot Mike, live on location right after this.
This is Hot Mike. Hot Mike on the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour 2 of Hot Mike on this Thursday morning, live on location, closing in on the start of the craziest weekend we have in North Dakota high school sports. 6 state tournaments going at the same time. Class B softball going to start just under an hour. Delax Burlington and Mayport CG coming up at 11 o'clock. You'll see it live on WDAY2 and WDAY Plus. Here on Extra, in about 90 minutes, the Class B baseball tournament get underway right next door at Newman Outdoor Field. That's our next guest. He's going to be, you got a cot over at Newman Outdoor for the next couple days here?
I brought in my nice comfy chair to sit right behind home plate and watch lots of baseball over the next 3 days. So.
Logan Midthun joins us. What's your exact title? West Fargo, what is it?
District Activities Director.
Boy, that's a big title there.
Yeah, something like that.
It's great to see you. We haven't had you on in forever. How you been?
Good. It's been a good school year, and, we're starting to wind down, and it's always kind of a sprint to the finish here with all the tournaments and everything going on, but it's been a good school year.
Well, this is a test for the Metro Tournament Committee here. You got 3 going on, because obviously we got these 2 here, and you got soccer going on. Who got stuck with soccer this weekend?
Well, I don't think he got stuck. James Moe is our soccer guru.
Well, he loves his
That's
soccer.
Just it.
That's
so
true.
he was ready to jump on that state soccer tournament, and he's super excited and has things ready to roll over at Cheyenne.
So how does that get divvied out for you guys with the Metro Tournament Committee when you've got multiple ones happening the same weekend?
Well, we just sit down as a group. Me and Todd just kind of started talking about it at state wrestling, I think, is when we were sitting in the back room. All right, what do we got coming up this spring? Let's figure out who wants to do what. And I said, I could take state B baseball. It's kind of nostalgic for me, and that's what I grew up doing is state B baseball. I know some of these guys coming in, and a lot of the umpires and stuff. So it's a fun tournament.
Describe you shared with me a picture yesterday of you with your dad's team. Describe what this tournament means to you.
Yeah, I shared with you that picture yesterday of the '97 state baseball champions, the Enderlin Eagles. I was the bat boy on that team. I was 10 years old. I'm in the front of that picture with my dad, and I mean that's the kind of memories I have from high school baseball and stuff like that. I was never lucky enough to make a state tournament when I was in high school, so I remember things like that. But just seeing the excitement even when Renville County is coming onto the field just now at Newman Field, how excited they were to play on a field like this. It's just an awesome experience.
And they have the best nickname available.
The Muskrats?
Muskrats is pretty darn good.
Yep.
To be at Newman for these teams, I don't know, they've done it now for more than a decade, I want to say, for the Class B has had an opportunity to play. You just mentioned it, though, for the teams that just got here. What's that mean to them?
I think it's a big deal when you get to walk in from the dugouts onto that big field and see the care and the detail that the Newman Grounds Group puts in to want to host a good tournament over there. It's got to be a good feeling for those kids.
For you, this is, you mentioned, a culmination of what's been a really long year, but some great success. With your ties to Horace, I have to ask, just the year that Horace has had, championships in football and girls basketball, to have some breakthrough in some other sports as well. What is that personally? You were there at the ground floor when the doors opened.
Yeah, obviously it means a lot, and it kind of had that personal connection to me because I know Harvey McMahon really well.
Hired
and
a lot of these people.
Hired a lot and been involved with them for a long time. So to see that progression of, the first year when they were varsity, when we were just trying to be competitive in games, to where he brought that program, and then to see Hintz with girls basketball do that, it's really hard to have high expectations, and when you're going in expected to win the conference, to win all these games, and to do well at state, and then to actually follow through and do that, it's hard to sustain that success.
To have the growing pains you did, that make it even more sweet to have the kind of success in the back end?
Yep, for sure. It was just nice to see kind of all that hard work come to fruition when you actually get to go out and see the success and see the community of Horace get excited about and come have big crowds for those state championship games.
To see where the future is now. Obviously, Horace football is going to move up.
Yep.
I'm sure you had some conversations on that, and I know Harvey and I talked about it as well on this program about the challenge that comes with that. What's been the reception, and I guess in West Fargo, about now that the Hawks are going to play with the Mustangs and the Packers next year?
Well, I had a unique view in that because I'm on that football committee for the High School Activities Association, so there was definitely some concerns from some community members in Horace about moving up, but I commend Harvey for greeting the challenge. He welcomed the challenge,
he really did.
And he said, "You know what? This is where we're playing. This is where we're supposed to be. So let's just go take care of it." And for like Cheyenne and West Fargo, I think they're looking forward to playing these games. Both Cheyenne and West Fargo are going to play at Horace this next year, and so those are going to be some really fun games.
Holy cow!
Well, like Aaron Ladeau said, Horace is going to play Cheyenne, they're going to play Davies, and they're going to play Kindred, 3 teams that were in the state title game last year. And so that's a pretty good schedule for them.
Awesome schedule. There are football teams across the country with that kind of schedule. To have that be a realization, because they played in every other sport. They played in baseball, they played in softball, basketball. They haven't done it in football on the varsity level yet. What's the anticipation for that for this fall?
I think there's a lot of high anticipation, but I think we're going to have some really big crowds at those games, and it's going to be kind of more of those rivalry feels, like when we have West Fargo and Cheyenne play and we get the big crowds. Now we got to come up with, I think, some sort of traveling trophies and kind of what kind of trophies we can have for these rivalry games that we've got. And it was fun with the state championship last year too with Cheyenne. I got to sit and watch Horace win a state championship, then I got to watch Cheyenne win a state championship, and to see the sustainable success that Newton's had at Cheyenne, that's not easy to do either, to have that over a long period of time. So
when you look at the full breadth of the year, describe just now being done with it, or just realization like, okay, did you get everything you wanted to get done, accomplished in your specific role?
I don't think in our roles we don't ever get everything done that we want to get done, but we have a vision for how we want to do things and some long-term improvements we got to make. Obviously, we just passed a referendum, so now we were working on expanding and building out Horace High School to get them finished out. And then we got to start looking at what are some facility things that we want to try to improve on, because I think if you just stand still and you're not moving forward, then you're falling behind. And so we got to look at, like we were just talking about off air, all the great facilities there are across the state. We need to see what we can do to keep having the top facilities for it.
I was going to say, in hosting, is that a big priority as well? Like maybe for Horace to get into the rotation to host some of these events?
Yep. Yeah, now that they're going to have a full-size gym to get them in the rotation to host things. And, I'm on the combined tournament committee with high school activities, so to try to advocate to get the tournaments that we're ready to host in West Fargo to try to host those tournaments.
Big week, I know, for Horace baseball to make it to the state tournament, which gets going up later today up in Grand Forks. That's another first to check off. You got to be really pumped about that as well.
Yeah, for Quinn Irie, I mean, they made it last year when they was out in Dickinson, but now to make it, and I think, again, expectations are a little higher this year when they had a lot of that group coming back. And Quinn's a phenomenal coach, so I was super excited that he's going to have another opportunity to make this state tournament. All 3 of our programs for baseball were really good this year, and it kind of stunk that it ended up being West Fargo versus Horace to qualify for state. But that's just the nature of the beast.
We had Coach Belke on the show on Tuesday to take over, and what Ryan Bodell has done at Cheyenne. That's a tall task there, and they've got They get in and they had a great run, and now all you got to do is get into the final 8 and see what happens.
Yep, that's just it. They lost a lot of close games this year that I think he was frustrated that they thought they could get over the hump. And to kind of see them peak at the right time of the year was really fun to see. And they've got, obviously a lot of talent with seniors, but they got some really good young kids that they're playing right now too. So, you're right. When you're stepping into a head coach position after back-to-back state titles, that's a really hard position to step into. But Belke's a smart guy, and he does things the right way. So
I was asking Jason this. I'll ask you as well. You've been around high school, especially North Dakota high school athletics, your entire life. Is there any appetite, Logan, to space things out on the spring end? That everything is combined this weekend, which is great. Everything's done, but nothing can have its own weekend like we have with basketball and football. Is there any discussion or any appetite for that at all?
Yeah, there's been some talk about, and I think there was even a proposal last year, 2 years ago, about trying to push baseball and softball back a week, and it ended up not passing. But I think there's certainly been some discussions about it for the reason you said. There's all these state tournaments going on. I think for like Class A baseball, we wouldn't want to look at moving it back a week, in my opinion, because Legion baseball in our large community is so big, and West Fargo Legion's phenomenal. So is all the Legion programs.
It starts next week.
It starts next week, so it'd be really hard to try to push that. But Class B baseball, I think there's probably a little bit more of an appetite to try to push those ones back a week to get them. But at the same time, this is also a really fun weekend when we can have all these things going on. So I think it depends who you ask.
Okay. I say, from your background in Enderlin, is that something that they would be on board with?
I think they would.
Yeah.
I don't think this is just an outside opinion looking in. I don't think Legion baseball in Class B towns is what it used to be.
I was going to say that.
I think it used to be a really big thing, and I think now Legion programs are kind of ready to wait for high school season to get done in the Class B level before they start. And so,
especially with the arrival of what this has been, softball, Class B softball has blown up over the last decade. That it, to me, my opinion, it doesn't seem fair to have to share it with other sports when no others are asked to do that throughout the rest of the year.
Yep. I think it's fair to look at it because the softball has progressed. I look at when my sister-in-law has played for Enderlin. They won a state softball title in 2011, 12, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, we were playing on 2012.
Yep, they were playing on a small little field
the
in West Fargo.
Backfield in West Fargo. I was there. I remember it vividly.
Now
the Bugs ate us up that weekend.
And now look at where we're playing.
Yeah, I know.
Here in Dickinson and Minot and Grand Forks, there's some amazing softball facilities. So it's just fun to see how softball has progressed over the last 12, 15 years.
Who'd I have? Trey Hussar was on the show last week's Northern Cast standout. I asked him, favorite baseball field to play on? He answered Enderlin. And he's dead on about that.
Yes, he is. Yep. I think Kevin Bratlin's probably smiling somewhere because Trey picked that.
So
awesome.
Take Enderlin out. What for you was your favorite one to go to and play?
Jamestown.
I
love playing at Jamestown. I played a lot of amateur baseball games at Jamestown, and just the atmosphere and the nostalgia with the old
dugout
grandstand.
is great.
I was a lefty, so that short right field fence I was in favor of, so that was kind of nice.
To have it be rotated around, Logan, as you mentioned, you're on the selection committee or the site committee on that. How important is it with the amount of venues we have now, to get them to those historic sites, but also with the new ones to try and incorporate them into the mix?
I think it's really important to give each of those communities an opportunity to host these state tournaments. Grand Forks, obviously, we're just putting in these, upgrading craft field for baseball and updating their softball field. It's good to give them an opportunity to host this because they'll do a great job, and Jamestown does a great job. And with Dickinson having great fields, just to give all those pockets around the state a chance to host this and have people come into their community to show off things is really important.
All right, so you're actually tournament supervisor for baseball. You're not over here. Todd Olson is running softball. What does that all entail for leading up to today?
It's just getting all the information out to the teams and making sure they know what our schedule is and how things are going to run. And it's greeting them here to make sure they have what they need so that they feel like they have a first-class experience with things, and then just being there to help and hopefully not having to watch the weather, not having to watch lightning to see if that's coming in. So as long as the weather cooperates, then I just get to sit back and watch some baseball.
I was going to say, I don't think, knock on wood, you're going to have any issues with
I hope not.
over the next couple days.
No,
for the first time.
After East Region track a couple of weeks ago, I think we deserve some good weather.
That was tough with a capital T.
Yep.
Was there any desire to move that a day or no?
Yeah, we certainly talked about it, and then the weather ended up being a lot worse the day of than we anticipated. But if we moved it to Saturday,
Saturday was much better.
It wasn't much better, and a lot of our head coaches would then have had to be running a lot of those events because we weren't going to get all those volunteers back. So it's hard when you're making those decisions, and you're wrong no matter what you do. It's kind of how we look at it.
Yeah. You got a couple more minutes to stick around here?
Yep.
All right, we're going to take a break. We come back much more. Logan Midthun joining us here on site. We're closing in on first pitch. Behind us, warm-ups going on. Class B state softball, Mayport CG and Delax Burlington. Back on Hot Mic on a Thursday morning right after this. Welcome back, everybody. Hot Mic here live on location on this opening day of the state softball tournament. I got a bunch of emails on what the Wolves should do. Did you watch last week?
I shut it off.
Shut it off early like everybody else did. Now we shouldn't take Nas Reed back. But see, this is the problem when you have a great season they had, but have the ending. Yeah. It just leaves a sour taste in one's mouth that, okay, we got to blow everything up.
Yep, it does. When it's almost as what if, second year in a row making the Western
Correct.
Conference Finals and just can't quite get over the hump to get there. And I think you want more from your superstar
Absolutely.
in some of those games, but it's also been fun to watch. It's just fun to be in the mix again.
For years, how bad they were. That's what I'm balancing. For years, when I was anchoring the sports every night, like the Wolves were a complete afterthought because they were horrible. Now, if you were to tell me back-to-back years you're going to be in the Western Conference Finals, sign me up.
Exactly. And when I was living in Minnesota, working out there, I could go on a Tuesday night to a Wolves game for pretty cheap tickets because they weren't real good at the time. Yeah. But that's certainly changed now.
Yeah, that's the whole overreaction is the worst thing here. The things settle down, but there are some decisions to make, whether it be with Julius Randle, with Nas Reed, with Nikhil Alexander-Walker. They've got some interesting decisions how this could play out for next season.
Yes, they do.
I'm curious about that. All right, so we mentioned you're running the Class B baseball tournament. We got some dynamite storylines over there. We were just talking off air. Thompson and Renville County are coming up in the first game. Yeah. Withstanding the nickname, Thompson's got a shot here, going for a fourth title in a row.
Yeah, going for a fourth title in a row. Like I talked about earlier, having success is hard, but having long-term sustainable success is really hard. So for Nate Solis and that crew to do that, I mean, Brady Schwab before that and Jason Schwabe before that. So it's amazing. But for Renville County, I just saw probably one of the best athletes in Class B North Dakota walk through right now, and Walker Broughton. He's going to be out there, I think, roaming center field or wherever he's doing. And so anytime you got him on your team, I think you got a chance.
Bison fans will be intrigued to see that. You can check that out here coming up. Of course, he's already signed. He's going to be playing football for the Bison here. I believe he's supposed to report about a day after Class B baseball wraps up, but he's going to start football.
Yep.
Dynamite player there, and he was pretty good at basketball as well.
That's just it. I mean, he really helped put West Hope Newburgh on the map. And there's a lot of other good seniors, I think, on that team too. But that state basketball championship with them and Bishop Bryan, to see that big crowd up there was really fun.
I haven't had a chance. We talked when the bill was proposed early in the legislature on the unlimited transfer bill that was proposed for high school sports. It obviously got defeated, thankfully so. You were part of that. You went to Bismarck. There was a large group that went to Bismarck. Why so passionately did you decide to interject yourself into it?
Just because we felt strongly that the system we have in place now for transfers works. And yes, there are maybe a few small problems or people that maybe had issue with it, but we didn't think overhauling the entire system was needed at that point. Now they're looking at adding an additional appeals to the process now, where it's not just a high school activity member, but they're bringing some outside people to be a part of that appeals process, which I think will maybe help with that. But we just didn't want this to turn into kind of the Wild West of
what college is this turning into,
exactly.
Right?
We didn't want it to start to look more like that model. We believe in playing for your local school, and if you want to transfer, that's fine. But there's just got to be some ramifications around that.
At least from parents or other colleagues of yours, what was the feedback you got when this was proposed? Did you hear any support for it?
I mean, not a lot of support from the people that I have been talking to about it. There were just a lot more concerns from coaches about, what do I do if this kid comes in, at the last minute, and I've already gone through the tryout process. Now I got to see if this kid's going to be on the team, and I think there was more concerns than good. And then with the parent perspective, if you're parent of a kid that's been in that community your whole life, and then these kids start coming in that are going to maybe take the spots of your child, I think that would be hard too. So
that one, when I heard about it, we talked about it on the show. I know you and I chatted for a little bit when it got. I thought that was one of the dumber ideas. I think we have other things to worry about.
Right.
That didn't seem high on the priority list for me on what's going on with high school athletics right now.
For sure. And I give a lot of credit to my local guy in West Fargo, Jim Jonas.
Yeah.
You know, Jim was a long-time teacher and coach, so he knows this world. And now he's in the legislature. For him to go out there and kind of fight the good fight for us out there was really helpful. And so it was great. It was great to have our distinguished students out at Bismarck to help testify.
Speak on
when you
that
hear
as well.
from people besides just an adults, but to hear kids talk about the impact it can have, I think that's even more impactful.
What I asked Jason this, I'll ask you as well. In your mind, what is top priority I'm trying to get your arms around as an AD going forward for high school athletics?
What's the best thing to get our arms around?
What's maybe the most pressing thing right now in your mind?
I think just honestly, things are going really well. So keeping things the way we have them going right now, it's just keeping the status quo. I mean, obviously, like I talked about earlier, trying to obviously improve on our facilities and things like that. But you know, we're not seeing the club scene try to really take over high school sports in North Dakota, where maybe in other parts of the country they're seeing that. And so I think just continuing to provide the right opportunities for kids that we do in our schools and hiring top-notch coaches so they feel like they're getting that experience.
Have you heard NIL? Has that been whispered about in the West Fargo school district at all?
A little bit. I've had one parent inquire about their kid in high school activities has a policy on that, and we just follow that policy. It hasn't hit us a whole lot yet. I imagine over the next few years it'll start coming more our direction, but no, I mean, we don't deal with it a whole lot at this point.
And I'm intrigued on that, knowing some states it's certainly hit, like Florida, Texas, California. It's been New York. It's been front and center. Other states like North Dakota, Minnesota, not as much. I think, as everything, it trickles down that it's going to come, and I'm intrigued to see what the reaction is going to be locally or around the state when a high school athlete secures an NIL deal.
I agree, because there's some really high-end talent in the area.
We're seeing it now. I mean, look at football. The class of 2027, Logan, already has 5 guys who have 4-star stars next to their name.
Yeah, we've got a kid from Kindred, and you got
2
kids all over the place.
Yeah.
And we got a swimmer in West Fargo that's going to go to commit to the University of Indiana. We had a Nebraska football commit, and we've got Arizona State hockey. I mean, there's some high-level kids, so it's going to be really interesting to see, you know, how they maybe try to tap into that potential that they have for the NIL.
I'm interested in the feedback from maybe older parents on that to say, okay, really, this is where we're going.
This is where we're going.
The train has already started on this here.
Yeah, so it's, you know, I applaud the high school activities for trying to get a policy in place early, and yeah, you're right. Get on the train, or you're going to get left behind with this, because that's just the world we live in.
All right, so give us the minute by minute for you today. You're going to be running around like a chicken with your head cut off here for the next 8-9 hours.
Between games, I run around with that chicken with my head cut off.
Once the actual game starts, it's easy,
Once the actual
right?
game starts, I just sit and help collect foul balls and sit in the back and watch hopefully some good pitching. As a former pitcher, I always get excited about day one, because usually teams throw their ace on the first day.
Yes.
And so I get excited if I get to watch some good pitching over there.
What do we imagine here for the games we have? Do you think some low-scoring games? We got some high. What do you think?
I think it's going to be some low-scoring games, especially when you're playing on the big field like that out there. If you got some outfielders that can roam and cover some ground, you're going to hopefully see some lower-scoring games. I mean, if you got a Trey Hussar going on the mound, it's going to probably be a low-scoring game for whoever they're going against. And
talk about another amazing athlete.
Yes.
I mean, he's going to go play baseball at South Dakota State next year. Just won a couple state championships this past weekend in track, on top of what he did in basketball and football.
Yep.
Pretty good year he's had.
Yeah, what a cool story of him finishing the region championship and then hopping on a plane to head out to Bismarck for the
we had him on the show last week. Was defied description.
That's just class B sports like that.
We didn't get a chance to talk to him about it. The barehanded catch, if you saw it, we had it on our show that he made a barehanded. I mean, you play baseball your life. You ever done that?
No, I mean I tried to protect myself when I was going to get hit in the head on a line drive.
Same here.
But I don't think I ever caught one that way.
Unbelievable. So great to see you, man. I know you're busy. Thanks for doing this.
You bet.
Have a great weekend. Have a good summer as well.
Thank you. Appreciate
Logan Midthun joining us, West Fargo. Ken, what is it?
District
Activities Director joining us here on Hot Mic. We'll break early. We come back. Cory Erickson going to join us, Hillsboro Central Valley head coach. The Burros are coming up later today in Game 2 against Belleville. We'll visit with him about his team and Class B softball as a whole. We roll on. Hot Mic, live on location. Back after this on WDAY Extra. Inforum.com. Welcome back, everybody. Hot Mic live on location rolls on here on WDAY Extra, KSFL TV, KMBN in Rapid City, and Inforum.com. Please be joined by Hillsboro Central Valley. Head softball coach Cory Erickson joins us. One of his 9 jobs between running a newspaper and taking photos, all that good stuff. It's great to see you. One of the OGs of Class B softball. We were just visiting about that off air, about where this came from. I remember in West Fargo in 2012, where we're at today. It's A to Z, my man. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a huge upgrade. It's awesome seeing the D1 programs, investing in their softball programs, getting these beautiful facilities like they have. From the backwoods field at Elmwood Park over there in West Fargo to Thorlton Park. It's quite the journey.
Describe being back here with your team, excitement level. You've done this before, but what's the level on day one of state softball?
It's always a mix of nerves and excitement. You never sleep great the night before, and that's me as a coach. I can only imagine what it's like for the players, but it's always a great opportunity. You're always curious which team is going to show up and play. Is it going to be the team that can show up, or the team that you're scared of seeing sometimes? But it's always a lot of fun. The kids are excited for it. The community's excited for it. And just ready to go out and play 3 good games of softball.
You got Velva. Tell me about what your matchup is like here later today.
So we played them a little bit earlier this season up in Minot, and they have 2 main pitchers that pitch for them. They're very similar. We faced one. We might face the other today. So we'll see. But they're a very athletic group, good hitting group. We were able to have success against them last time we played, but it also started raining that day, and it was cold and windy, and you throw out the elements today, you just never know. It's going to be who wants it more.
To be here among the final 8, though, is that a sense? You've done it before, so are you guys beyond the, hey, we're happy to be here phase? We want to get to Saturday phase.
So it's good that you brought that up. When we made it in 2023, we upset Central Cass to get here, and it was just such a shock to everyone that Central
Cass lost.
Right, Central Cass lost, and they're not at the state tournament. So we were just kind of happy to be there, and we kind of played like we were just happy to be there in 2023. This year, we got a really strong group of seniors that really lead us on the field and offensively. So they want to finish better than we did in 2023. They were talking last spring about wanting to be in that state championship and winning the state championship game. So, it's always been kind of a goal to get here, and winning that first game is really important.
You've seen it up close, Cory, so I'll trust your opinion more than anybody. The level of player in Class B girls softball, why has it gotten better in your mind? How has it gotten better?
Right. We talked a little off air before we came on just about how the Division I programs used to not even really follow any of the North Dakota teams.
No way, yeah.
Now it's just, there's been more of an investment into off-season stuff. Summer softball's gotten a lot bigger here in the States, so the kids are playing more months out of the year. Kids are traveling out of state for camps. I know Jocelyn Berg, who's an outstanding softball player for Grand Forks Red River. I see her mom posts occasionally, we're down in Florida for a softball camp at the University of Florida.
Yeah.
So been a lot more drive and a lot more investment in trying to get to mid-major and major college programs. So I think a big step up is just that. Lifting has gotten better. The level of pitching has gotten better. And once the level of pitching kind of rose up, the level of play throughout the field really rose up too.
I look as well, the amount of participation has blown up. I know with girls wrestling, softball, volleyball are the biggest 3 in the state. And we've seen it where I think when you guys first started, it was all East teams and maybe Bishop Ryan. I can't remember if there was another West team. Now you've got 2 regions of teams out West.
Yeah, and back then Bishop Ryan was playing Class A.
Class A, that's right. Yeah.
It was North and South, and we had, I think, 8 teams in each region. So 16 teams, and if you're one of the top 8 teams, you were at
state.
state. Right. Now it's so much more competitive. Us being in Region 1 with Kindred Richland, who's always competitive, Central Cass, who's always competitive. We kind of get a taste for what all the other Class B teams, in the region have been feeling for so long. Getting here is just a huge accomplishment. The number of teams, the level of play has been great. It's good to see more involvement from all the teams and seeing the number of teams grow.
Well, they have 2 first-timers here with Carrington here for the first time. Botno's never made it before. That can only help grow the sport as well.
Yeah, Carrington. I know their community was so excited that they were
Really
able to make
excited,
it.
yeah.
So good for them to see. Botno, like I said, their first time being here too. It's huge for these programs, and they got, Botno's got a really good youth summer program. Our teams have kind of duked it out in the past couple of years at the 10 and 12U levels. And then Carrington, it's good to see. They always got athletes. They had a great girls basketball team this year. They're always good in every sport. So good to see that kind of coming up in softball.
I'm intrigued now, the summer months, when you guys are done. And I know I talked with Scott Cost about this when COVID was going on, about launching a summer softball league. Has that sustained? Do you still see that kind of participation going?
No, the participation is still there. Where all the teams have kind of gone has changed. Some nights of the week work better for others. It's not quite like Legion baseball here.
Right.
So it's, this team is in this league, playing on these nights. This team is playing in this league, playing on these nights. So it's spread out a little bit. We don't really have the impact league like we formed back then, but we're still getting games. We're still playing these teams throughout the summer. It's not as coalesced, I guess you'd
How
say.
much now is it that, I'm assuming when you first started, you had to, tell kids about what this is, maybe beg to get them to come out. Is that the case anymore?
No. Our summer, we have, Hillsboro, Central Valley, we're not a huge school, school system or anything, but we have...
Depends on what Class B school you're
right,
talking to.
exactly. Right. But we had 30 girls involved in our 10 and under program this year.
That's fantastic.
A little bit smaller at the 12U, but we got a ton of girls in the 14U program, so I don't really need to beg kids to come out. It's, and especially us making it to the state tournament and, having opportunities like this and getting headlines and everything. It's something that kids kind of plan on doing in the summer now.
I was going to say, you mentioned it, Kindred Richland not being here is shocking in its own right, right?
Right, yeah. And not to take anything away from them. They are a fantastic program, so many good athletes. But, I know that we had a good chunk of the this half of the state cheering for us in that game. Just to see someone new that is not always in the state tournament. Yeah.
For your team, how much are they watching? Because softball's on, Cory, all the time. I watch it. I love the game. Are they watching games on TV now because it's such more readily available?
Oh yeah, ESPN, just ESPN2. The coverage of regionals, super regionals, and how many hundreds of games they broadcast throughout the spring. We have so many kids watching more college softball, and also the advent of streaming services as well. You're able to watch some of the local softball that maybe you couldn't see before. So we have 2 kids going on playing college next year, and I know they just soak up every little bit of softball that they can see.
To see that, I know one going to Jamestown as well, with Jamestown moving up to the Division II ranks, and they've had some great success in the NAIA ranks. How much does that change now, where there's another NCAA school that has softball that's looking at players?
Right. That's huge for us. It's huge for Class B in general. UND and NDSU, they're usually pulling some of the top Class A players and maybe a Class B player here and there. But, we're finally getting players that can play at that D2 level on a consistent basis. So that's huge to us to get another school. And with how big that that conference is and how many schools in the area there are. You got Minot and Marion, Crookston,
the Dragons.
And Moorhead. So it's super nice, and it's a great opportunity for our kids.
All right, so you don't play until the second game. You actually came down early, which I appreciate that. The team is coming later. What is mentality like before you play the middle game, so you don't really know when you're going to start? What is that like to try and get ready for that?
We're used to it. All of our kids play in summer tournaments, and those ones are you show up 2 hours before your game starts, and maybe you're there for 2 hours, maybe you're there for an hour. So you hop in, you get your swings in, and you're ready to go whenever. So our kids are playing pretty loose. We had a good couple of days of practice. I don't think we're too uptight or anything like that. We're just coming in, playing softball like we know we can.
This matchup we mentioned, who you got, is a state tournament games, you've been part of them. Is a quick start necessary in games like this?
It's important, just to kind of settle the nerves, I think. When we beat Kindred Richland to get here, we put up a 5 spot on the board right away in the top of the first
inning. That goes a long way.
And, with an 8th grade pitcher that we had in that game, it just gives her a little bit more comfort, a little bit more wiggle room. So if she gives up a walk or a hit, she can relax a little bit. So jumping out early is important. The longer these games go on and it's closer, that usually benefits the underdog a little bit more, I would say.
Yep.
So we're hoping to jump out fast today and and just battle and grind out a win.
All right, I've talked to the administrators. I want to talk to the coach about this because I've been on this bandwagon for 10 years since I was still anchoring the sports about spacing this weekend out.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it was brought about maybe having Class B softball and baseball have its own weekend.
Sure.
You're in it.
Yes.
Would that hurt participation if you go one more weekend?
No. I was one of the ones that I've been pushing for that.
Yeah.
This year, our first practices were all indoors. And
that part, don't even get me started. I don't know why we're practicing in the middle of March in North Dakota, but that's just me.
And Scott Cost at Central Cass will tell you the same thing. We're the northernmost state that has the earliest start. So it just doesn't really make any sense to us. I'm hoping that changes here the next couple of years. I really feel it should change in the next couple of years. It wouldn't impact participation for us at all. I know there's always summer jobs going on and everything, but if you want to compete, if you want to be successful on this team, you're going to dedicate yourself to it.
Right.
So it's not going to change a whole lot for us.
My whole thought was, and I know it's a long school year, and I know coaches, yourself, administrator, we're past Memorial Day. I don't know when you guys' last day of school was, that there is some hesitation about that. But this is the only time of the year where we're asking everybody to share the spotlight with other tournaments. We don't do that in football. We don't do that in basketball. I don't know why we do that at this time of the year.
I know. Everything's going on this weekend, it seems. So if we were able to space things out more, it actually works out better. You give the boys a little bit more time after the boys' state basketball tournaments to get ready. It spreads everything out so much more, and this way we're avoiding having regionals. If we were to push it back a week, we avoid regionals interfering with state track, which is what we ran into this year. So just hoping to be able to give our kids a little bit more time to breathe, I guess.
How often do you have that double up with softball and track? You have athletes that do both.
We try to avoid it just scheduling wise, but we usually don't have too many players that double up sports wise. But we did have a good group of seventh graders, and you're talking about Claire Grindy before we came on. Won 3 individual titles. She's a softball player too, so that is going to be a conflict in the future that we want to try to avoid.
It's great to see you. I know. Thanks so much for coming down early and doing this. Yes. I appreciate it. Good luck later today, all right?
Thanks
so much for the time. Cory Erickson joining us, Hillsboro Central Valley softball coach. Burros are coming up in Game 2 later today against Velva. We'll take our final break. We come back. We'll get you ready. We got a game about to start. I got to get up to the booth. We'll get you ready for that and a busy Sports Thursday. Hot Mike will wrap after this on WDAY Extra, KSFL, KMBN, and Inforum.com. All right, wrapping things up here on a Thursday morning. We've now moved upstairs to the broadcast location, getting ready for day 1 of the Class B State Softball Tournament with our first game coming up here just about 10 minutes. You flip over on WDAY 2 to watch softball between Mayport-CG and Delax Burlington to get things going on a bright, sunny day. Looks like fantastic weather we're going to have at least for day 1 and potentially for all weekend long, which is well earned after which has been another jilted spring sports season. Looking across the way, Newman Outdoor Field will get going in about a half hour with its games. First game up there coming up at 11:30 with Thompson against Renville County, and we'll give you the full TV listings for everything if you're looking to watch coming up here in just a few minutes. I mentioned earlier on in the show, obviously with the Wolves season coming to an end last night, now the questions begin about what this team does going forward and the decisions that they have. Clearly there's some contracts that they're going to have to make decisions on about players who are going to come back, potentially some that may not come back. That's going to be the fantastic debates that happen around this basketball team over the next, I'd say, month and a half before. We have to remember, though, the NBA draft comes up just at about a month from now to get going on that. A couple other notes here. We mentioned the Vikings are back. Had their OTAs yesterday. J.J. McCarthy was out meeting the media on that. So Vikes are getting ready to get their off-season program ramped up, at least for the next 3 to 4 weeks. Then they'll break. And then before you know it, training camp will be ready to rock and roll on that front. Just a couple notes here as we get set for our first game with Delax and Mayport-CG, 2 programs that have had some pretty good success at the Class B softball level. Delax had a dynamite year, 21-2. They've won 21 games in a row. They're the number 2 seed in this tournament.
behind number 1 seed Central Cass. Feel like we haven't talked about the 8,000-pound gorilla in the room, but we had Scott Cost on the show. I believe Sam talked to him on Monday. We'll see them coming up later today about 4 o'clock in our afternoon session, late afternoon session. 6-time state champions. They were runners-up last year. They had another dynamite year where they've just pounded the baseball. They are the overwhelming favorites. Delax is hoping they get a chance to get into that conversation. They've got a couple of really fun players you're going to want to watch. Piper Feller, one of their best players, 8 home runs, 49 RBIs. They're making their 9th trip to state. Mayport-CG here for the 7th time. You'll recognize their head coach down there, Keenan Konchak, on the right. It was the head coach of the state champion-winning girls basketball team that won the Class B title last year in 2024, the first year of the 3 classes out in Jamestown, as he coaches the softball team as well. Be fun to watch this group get going here today. And we followed by our second game with Velva Drake Animus coming up against that Hillsboro Central Valley team. We were visiting with Cory Erickson there in our last segment on the kind of challenges that presents. And some of these teams have played. It's funny, I was visiting with Cory off air. Hillsboro and Mayport-CG did not play this season. So 2 teams that aren't that far away actually did not match up, which a little bit of a scheduling anomaly. Obviously, the weather got involved in that. So they're hoping if those teams are able to win, they got a shot to play in the next round coming up tomorrow. And it is a busy day across all of our channels, which we're going to give you the full lowdown on what to watch here in just a minute before we have to sign off. But I'm really interested to see also what happens. We're not the only softball game in town. College World Series begins in just a couple minutes as well from Oklahoma City. We mentioned we checked in with Ole Miss and J.B. Traxel, former Bison assistant coach, who's now the head coach at Ole Miss. They come up later tonight. Texas and Florida starting things in just a minute. Okay, it's time to lay out the TV schedule. Let's do some what to watch before we wrap up. Okay, so here's the lineup. Let's start with Class A baseball, which is going to get going in about a half hour from Grand Forks and Kraft Field. You can stream all the quarterfinals today. They'll be available on WDAY+. So if you want to watch any of the games from Grand Forks, that's where you'll be able to watch them. Our guy Sam Getzinger will have the call of that. Class A softball will get going here shortly, also from the new complex at UND. Those games will be available on WDAY+ as well. Ryan McNamara will have the call of those games beginning in just a minute. Class B baseball will start, as I mentioned, at 11:30. That'll be here on Extra. Cullen Holt and Mike Scogan will have the call from Newman Outdoor Field of those games. Thompson and Renville County will be the first game. The Muskrats and the Tommies coming up to start things at 11:30. Here, we'll get going in about 2.5 minutes. As soon as we sign off the air, we got to get ready for softball. That'll be on WDAY2. You get to see all 4 games today, starting with Mayport-CG and Delax Burlington. So all 4 quarterfinals from Class B softball on WDAY2. Also, soccer is going on today out in West Fargo at Cheyenne High School. You can stream the quarterfinals. They get going at noon on WDAY+. So we got everything covered for you there. If you're looking for it, that's where you can find it. Also, if that's not enough, there's a couple other sporting events that you want to watch tonight. Obviously, we've got Game 5, Pacers of the Knicks. Indiana leads the series 3-1. The Pacers win. They go to the NBA Finals, 7 o'clock on TNT. Oilers and the Stars play Game 5 tonight, 7 o'clock on ESPN. If Edmonton wins, they go to the Stanley Cup Final. Dallas trying to force a Game 6. And as I mentioned, the College World Series begins today. Great matchup, conference game, Tennessee and Oklahoma, 1:30 on ESPN in the opening day of the double elimination of the Softball College World Series. We got to get out of here. We got time for softball to get started here on WDAY2. Our thanks to Cory Erickson, to Logan Midthun, and to Jason Simpfenderfer for joining us on the show. Shout out to our great engineering staff that got us on the air here, and of course to our guy Eric Bennell back in studio. Have a great day, everybody. Enjoy all the sports we got going, and we'll see you back in studio tomorrow on Hot Mic on WDAY Extra, KSFL, KMBN, and Inforum.com. Have a great Thursday, everybody.